The ballroom for my father-in-law's 70th birthday was roaring, a glittering symphony of celebratory music and booming voices. And there I was, Ethan Miller, his most presentable son-in-law, a whiskey glass in hand, making the rounds with a practiced smile plastered on my face. No one knew the phone in my pocket felt less like a device and more like a bomb, its timer ticking down to 0. I had been preparing for this day for a very long time. My wife, Chloe, moved through the crowd like a proud peacock, preening under the constant shower of compliments. She had no idea that in a few short minutes, I was going to publicly pluck every last one of her beautiful, arrogant feathers. Chapter 1. The Eve of the Storm. Ethan, over here. Come have a drink with your Uncle Jim. My mother-in-law, Sharon Davis, had a voice that could cut through any crowd, sharp and commanding. I quickly snapped into my well-rehearsed, perfect son-in-law persona and hurried over. Sharon, Uncle Jim, my pleasure. The glasses clinked, and the amber liquid burned a trail down my throat, setting a fire in the pit of my stomach. But the smile never left my face, a frozen mask hiding the Arctic chill in my soul. Tonight was my father-in-law Robert Davis's 70th birthday. In a city like ours, the Davis name meant something. Robert had been a man of some influence before he retired, a man who valued one thing above all else: appearances. So, this party was a full-blown production, held in the grand ballroom on the top floor of the Regency Hotel. Every relative, friend, and acquaintance who mattered was here. The entire Davis clan was infected with a deep-rooted sense of superiority. They acted as if their daughter, Chloe, marrying me was the single greatest act of charity of the century. I remember when Chloe and I first started dating. Her parents couldn't have been more against it. They hated that I came from a small town, that my parents were blue-collar workers, that I didn't have a stable, 9-to-5 job with a pension. But Chloe, back then, had been adamant. She said she loved my drive, my ambition. For her, I worked myself to the bone. I quit my dead-end corporate job and went into business with a buddy. The years that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and grinding work. I remember drinking with clients until my stomach bled, pulling 3-day shifts just to close a single deal. But hard work paid off. My small startup slowly grew into a company pulling in 7 figures a year. I bought us a house in the best gated community in the city and bought Chloe the luxury car she'd always dreamed of. I thought I had finally earned their respect. And I had, at least on the surface. Robert and Sharon started bragging about their successful son-in-law. Chloe became the daughter with the good eye. At every family gathering, I was the main event. They'd ask me, with wide smiles, how the company was doing, how much money we were making, then turn to their friends and introduce me with a proprietary air, as if to say, "See, this is our son-in-law." Like a fool, I basked in their phony approval. I thought my sweat and sacrifice had finally bought me the happiness and acceptance I craved. Until 3 months ago, I'd been out late for a business dinner, had a bit too much to drink. When I got home, Chloe was already fast asleep. She looked so peaceful, her long eyelashes casting faint shadows on her cheeks in the soft glow of the bedside lamp. She still looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with. I tiptoed into the bathroom. As I passed her nightstand, the screen of her Apple Watch suddenly lit up. It was an iMessage notification. From a Mark T. I knew the name. Mark Thorne. He was a department head at her firm. Chloe had mentioned him a few times, said he was a great mentor. I didn't think much of it at first, probably just work stuff. But the message preview was a needle that lanced straight through my heart. "Baby, you sleep? You were incredible tonight." It was followed by a kissy face emoji. The blood in my veins turned to ice. The drunken fog in my head vanished, replaced by a horrifying clarity. I stood there, frozen, staring at that tiny screen, my heart squeezed tight by an invisible hand, the pain making it hard to breathe. I couldn't believe it. Chloe, the woman who swore she'd stand by me when I had nothing. The woman who made me breakfast every morning and told me to drive safe. The woman who would gently wipe my face and pull a blanket over me when I came home drunk. How? My mind was a chaotic buzz. It has to be a mistake, a wrong number, or I couldn't let myself finish the thought. With trembling hands, I gently lifted her wrist. Using the faint light, I unlocked the watch with her passcode, our anniversary. I opened the message thread. As I scrolled up, The chat history unfolded like a horror story, each message a new blade twisting in my gut. Did your husband suspect anything last night? Don't worry, he's a total idiot. I told him I was working late, and he bought it. You've got him wrapped around your finger. Once we get his money, we'll kick him to the curb. Almost there. I already had him transfer most of his assets into my name. Told him it was to protect the company from liability. He does whatever I say. You're amazing, baby. Soon, we can finally be together. I was shaking, my teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. An idiot. That's all I was to them. An idiot. The woman I had loved with every fiber of my being was playing me, scheming with another man while living off the fruits of my labor, laughing at my stupidity. In that moment, I wanted to kill them both. But I held back. I wasn't a reckless kid anymore. Rage wouldn't solve anything. It would only put me at a disadvantage. I would have my revenge. But not like this. Not in the dark, where it was just the three of us. I would make them pay in the very arena where I had so desperately sought approval. I would utterly destroy them. I would nail Chloe to a cross of shame in front of the family she cared so much about, leaving her there to rot for all time. From that day on, I changed. On the surface, I remained the same doting, idiot husband. When she asked me to sign over company shares to her name, I smiled and said, of course. When she wanted her name added to the deed of the house, I did it without blinking. The more compliant I became, the more the contempt and triumph in her eyes became impossible to hide. She must have thought I was completely under her spell. Meanwhile, in the shadows, I began to gather my arsenal. Under the guise of upgrading home security, I had several hidden cameras installed. Their placements were, of course, meticulously chosen. I also recovered all the deleted data from the work phone she used exclusively to contact Mark Thorne. Text messages, bank transfers, photos, videos. I had it all. I even figured out their routine. Every Wednesday and Friday afternoon, they'd meet at the Willow Creek Inn and Spa, a secluded boutique hotel on the outskirts of town known for its privacy. Like a patient hunter, I lay in wait for the perfect moment to strike. And that moment was tonight, my father-in-law's 70th birthday party. What did the Davis family value most? Their reputation. Their good name. So I was going to take that good name, and in front of everyone they knew, I was going to tear it to shreds, throw it on the ground, and grind it into dust under my heel. Ethan, what are you daydreaming about? Sharon's voice pulled me back to the present. I blinked, forcing a sheepish smile. Nothing, Sharon. Just so happy to see Robert looking so great, and to have all the family here. It's a wonderful night. You're a good boy, Ethan. So thoughtful, she said, nodding with satisfaction, the wrinkles around her eyes softening. I laughed coldly to myself. Thoughtful? You have no idea how thoughtful I can be. The party was reaching its peak. Robert Davis, his face flushed with wine and pride, sat at the head table, basking in the glory of being the family patriarch. Chloe floated between tables, the perfect hostess, greeting this cousin, laughing with that aunt. She was stunning tonight in a form-fitting red dress that accentuated her every curve. Her makeup was flawless, every smile and gesture calibrated for maximum effect. The praise from the relatives was endless. Look at Chloe, isn't she lucky? A handsome, successful husband, and she's as beautiful as ever. You know, I used to think Ethan wasn't good enough for her. Now look at him. Chloe sure knew how to pick him. Those two are the pride of the family. Hearing this, Chloe's chin lifted a little higher. She caught my eye from across the room, a glimmer of smug satisfaction in her gaze. I met her look, raised my glass, and gave her a warm, loving smile. She smiled back, a picture of grace. To me, it was the ugliest, most deceitful thing I had ever seen. It was almost time. The toasts had been made. The dinner plates were being cleared. The hired MC took the stage, microphone in hand, and began a syrupy tribute to Robert Davis's life and career. The guests quieted down, turning their attention to the stage. I knew this was it. The moment had arrived. I stood up, glass in hand, and walked toward the head table. Dad, Mom, uncles, aunts, everyone, good evening. My voice was calm but clear, easily cutting through the low murmur of the room. All eyes turned to me. Tonight is a special night, celebrating Dad's 70th birthday. Seeing him so healthy and happy, surrounded by everyone he loves, as his son-in-law, it truly fills my heart with joy. I started with the requisite platitudes, and Robert and Sharon beamed with pleasure. Chloe watched me with a look of pure pride, as if to say, "See, that's my husband. He always knows the right thing to say." I paused for a beat, then shifted my tone. To help capture all the amazing moments from tonight and to share the joy with family who couldn't be here, I've just started a WhatsApp group. I thought we could all share our photos and videos from the party in one place. I'll go ahead and add all of you right now. The suggestion was perfectly reasonable, even thoughtful. As expected, it was met with a round of applause. "What a great idea, Ethan. So considerate." "Yes, I got some great shots of Robert earlier." I pulled out my phone and, in full view of everyone, started tapping away. In moments, a new group chat named Robert Davis's 70th Birthday Bash was created. I went down the list, adding every single member of the Davis family in that room. A chorus of notification chimes echoed through the ballroom. Phones came out, and people curiously examined the new group on their screens. Chloe smiled at me. "That was a great idea, honey." I looked at her, my own smile full of hidden meaning. Anything for the family. She didn't see the ice in my eyes. I made Robert, Sharon, and a few other senior family members group admins, then demoted myself to a regular member. With that done, I took a deep, steadying breath. I opened my Photos app and navigated to an album I created weeks ago. It was titled simply The Gift. My thumb hovered over the first image. It was a screenshot of a text conversation. "Mark, baby, miss you. Chloe, miss you too. The idiot is out of town on business again tonight. Usual place?" In the ballroom, the energy was electric. The MC was inviting the man of the hour to the stage to cut the cake. Phones were raised all around me, ready to capture the picture-perfect family moment. And I hit send. My show was about to begin. Chapter 2, The Silent Verdict. The first screenshot landed in the group chat like a pebble dropped into a silent lake. No splash, just quiet, ever-widening ripples. Sent. I didn't add a single word or emoji. I was just the projectionist, calmly loading the reel. I looked up and scanned the room. At first, no one noticed. All eyes were on the enormous, three-tiered cake on Robert Davis's face, which was split in a wide, joyous grin. Chloe stood beside her father, a beatific smile on her face as she helped him light the candles. She was, without a doubt, one of the stars of the evening, radiant and adored. Ding! A single, crisp notification sound cut through the ambient noise. It was from a cousin sitting next to me. He instinctively glanced at his phone, his brow furrowing in confusion. He must have assumed it was a mistake, someone sending a picture to the wrong chat, because he locked his screen and put it away. Then ding, 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 ding. The chimes started popping off, one after another, all around the ballroom. More and more people were looking at their phones. The atmosphere in the room began to shift. The purely celebratory mood felt diluted, tainted by a creeping, unspoken strangeness. Faces began to morph from confusion to shock, then to utter disbelief. The whispers started. "Hey, did you see the group chat? Who sent that?" "Ethan, I think. He just made the group." "What is that?" "He must have sent it by accident." "Wait, is that Chloe's profile picture in the screenshot?" "No way. That's got to be some kind of joke." I watched it all unfold, my face an emotionless mask. My thumb swiped to the second image. Send. This one was more explicit. "Mark, did I take good care of you last night, my little kitten?" "Chloe, ugh, stop, you're so bad. Are you sure your wife doesn't suspect anything?" "Mark her? I can't stand to even touch that hag. She's nothing like you. You're perfect." If the first screenshot could be dismissed as a prank or a Photoshop, the second one dripped with a slimy intimacy that was impossible to ignore. The volume of the chatter in the room grew louder. At the head table, the older relatives were now looking at their phones. My mother-in-law, Sharon, squinted through her reading glasses at her screen. As the words registered, her smile froze and then crumbled. What in the world is this?" she muttered, a tremor in her voice. Beside her, my father-in-law Robert's brow was deeply furrowed. "What is this nonsense? Who's fooling around in the group chat?" He still hadn't realized that the star of this particular fooling around was his own precious daughter. On the stage, Chloe seemed to sense the change in the room's energy. Her smile faltered. She shot a questioning look in my direction. I met her gaze and gave her a slight, reassuring nod. Then I calmly sent the third image, and the fourth, and the fifth. Like a methodical machine, I uploaded the evidence piece by damning piece. The intimate selfies they had sent each other. The cold, calculating messages where they plotted how to transfer my assets. The cruel, mocking conversations where they ridiculed me. Every screenshot was a knife. Every word was a bucket of filth. And I was methodically plunging the knives into the heart of the Davis family and dumping the filth all over the pristine reputation they cherished. A heavy silence fell over the ballroom. The festive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a dead, suffocating quiet. The only sounds were the ragged breaths of 100 shocked guests and the faint, rhythmic swiping of fingers on glass screens. Every eye in the room was now fixed on me and Chloe, their gazes a mixture of horror, disgust, morbid curiosity, and a little bit of schadenfreude. Chloe finally knew something was terribly wrong. She fumbled for her own phone, her hands shaking, and opened the Birthday Bash WhatsApp group. As her eyes fell on the familiar chat bubbles, on the vile words she herself had typed, the color drained from her face. She went deathly pale. The hand holding her phone began to tremble violently. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her head snapped up, and she stared at me, her eyes wide with terror and despair, as if she were looking at a demon clawed up from the depths of hell. I ignored her. My thumb opened a sub-album within the gift. This one was labeled Hotel Security Cam. The first photo showed Chloe and Mark Thorne, hand in hand, walking into the lobby of the Willow Creek Inn and Spa. The timestamp in the bottom corner was crystal clear, October 17th, 2:13 p.m. She had told me she was going shopping with her best friend that day. The second photo was of them at the check-in desk, his arm wrapped casually around her waist. The third, the fourth, them waiting for the elevator, kissing inside the elevator, walking down the hall, unlocking a hotel room door. Every image was undeniable proof. These photos were a series of hammer blows, smashing not only the hearts of the Davis family, but also any possibility of denial for Chloe. No, this isn't real. It's not real. Chloe finally broke, her voice a high-pitched, desperate shriek. Ethan, you're insane. Why are you doing this to me? She tried to rush at me, but a nearby uncle grabbed her arm, holding her back. At the head table, Robert Davis was now trembling with rage. His face was a dark, mottled purple. He pointed a shaking finger at Chloe, his lips quivering for a long moment before he could force the words out. You shameless creature. Dad, it's not true. Ethan is framing me. It's all fake. It's photoshopped. Chloe screamed, clawing for any defense she could find. Photoshopped, I said, my voice cold and quiet. It was the first time I had spoken. My voice, though not loud, cut through the tense air like a shard of ice. Then I hit send one last time. It was a video file. The file name was simple. Proof. The video was short, only 30 seconds. The camera was a little shaky, clearly filmed in secret from across a table at a cafe. Chloe was facing the camera, a smug smile on her face as she spoke to the man sitting opposite her. Don't you worry, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. That idiot Ethan is so wrapped around my finger, he has no clue. I've got over half the company's shares and the house in my name now. Next month, I'll get him to transfer the rest of his cash, and then we file for divorce and get out of here. Everything he worked for, it's all going to be ours. The man across from her, Mark Thorne, reached out and stroked her cheek. You're brilliant, my love, he said with a grin. The video ended, but it was more than enough. If the texts and photos left even a shred of doubt, the video was the final, irrefutable nail in the coffin. Her voice, her face, her words, every detail was undeniable. This was the smoking gun. The group chat exploded. The relatives, who had been stunned into silence, erupted like a volcano. Oh my God, is that really Chloe? You think you know someone to do something so disgusting, so evil, transferring assets? That's not just cheating, that's a crime. Poor Ethan. He worked so hard for everything he has, and this is what he gets? Almost cleaned out by those two snakes. Shameless. She's dragged the entire Davis family name through the mud. The accusations and disgusted looks rained down on Chloe from all directions. She went completely limp, held up only by two of her aunts, her face ashen, her eyes vacant and hollow. And the head table. After watching the video, Robert Davis swayed violently. He clutched his chest, gasping for air, his eyes bulging as he stared at his daughter. Disgrace. You are a disgrace. He roared the words with the last of his strength. Then his eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed, falling sideways out of his chair and onto the floor with a sickening thud. Dad! Robert! Somebody call 911. The ballroom descended into chaos. Screams, sobs, frantic phone calls. It was a madhouse. I watched it all with cold detachment. I watched as Robert was lifted onto a stretcher. I watched Sharon wailing hysterically. I watched Chloe, looking like a marionette whose strings had been cut. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy in my revenge. Just a quiet, hollow certainty that they deserved every second of this. I pocketed my phone, turned my back on the wreckage, and, under the stunned gaze of everyone in the room, I walked out of the place I had once tried so desperately to belong. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, clearing my head slightly. My phone buzzed. It was Chloe. I declined the call and blocked her number. Immediately, another call came in. Sharon, then Chloe's brother, then a slew of other relatives. One by one, I blocked them all. As of tonight, the Davis family and I were done. We had no relationship, no connection, nothing. And my revenge? It had only just begun. Did you really think this was the end, Chloe? No, this was just the appetizer. The main course was yet to come. I was going to make sure that you and that bastard Mark Thorne would pay the ultimate price for what you did. Chapter 3. Salt the Earth. The sterile, antiseptic smell of the hospital filled the hallway. The Davis clan was a frantic mess, huddled outside the emergency room, their faces a mixture of anxiety and raw fury. I didn't go to the hospital. I drove back to the house we once called home. The moment I walked in, I was assaulted by Chloe's presence. Designer bags on the console table, expensive cosmetics cluttering the bathroom counter, a walk-in closet overflowing with clothes. Every single item had been bought with my money, the result of my sweat and sleepless nights. I once foolishly believed that if I gave her the best of everything, I could keep her heart. How pathetic that seemed now. I grabbed the large, empty suitcases I'd staged in the garage and began, with methodical detachment, to purge the house of her. Her clothes, her shoes, her photographs, every object that held a trace of her, I threw into a suitcase. In the study, I came across our wedding portrait. In the photo, she was smiling sweetly, nestled in my arms. I was smiling too, a happy, clueless fool. I stared at it for a long moment before ripping it from the wall. With a sharp crack, the glass of the frame shattered in my hand. Shards dug into my palm, and blood welled up, dripping through my fingers. I didn't feel a thing. When your heart is numb, a little physical pain is nothing. I tossed the broken portrait into the trash and dragged the suitcases outside, leaving them by the curb like garbage. Then, I changed the passcode on the front door. With that done, the house already felt lighter, cleaner. I poured myself a large whiskey and sat on the sofa, mapping out my next move. The public humiliation was just the first step. The goal was to make Chloe a social pariah, to have her own family turn on her. The next step was financial annihilation. She had schemed and plotted to steal my wealth. I will make sure she didn't get a single penny. I called my attorney, Michael Wallace. Wallace, it's Ethan Miller. Ethan, what's up? It's late, he said, a note of surprise in his voice. I want a divorce, I said, my voice flat and firm. I need you to file the paperwork immediately. I have indisputable proof that my wife committed adultery and was actively attempting to fraudulently transfer our shared assets into her name. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Wallace was a pro, though, and recovered quickly. Okay, Ethan, I understand. With that kind of evidence, you'll have all the leverage in the settlement negotiations. As the at-fault party, it's very likely the court will rule that she leaves the marriage with nothing. That's exactly what I want, I said coldly. Understood. Send me everything you have. I'll work on it overnight, and we can file first thing in the morning. After hanging up, I zipped the entire gift folder, encrypted it, and emailed it to Wallace. With Chloe's fate set in motion, I turned my attention to the other snake in this pit, Mark Thorne. The man didn't just sleep with my wife. He conspired with her to steal my life's work. There was no way I was letting him off the hook. For a man like him, Destroying his family and reputation was just the beginning. I wanted to take away the one thing he truly valued, his career. I had already done my homework on him. He was the director of sales at a publicly traded corporation, a real rising star, on the fast track to a vice president position. Big corporations like his are obsessed with public image and employee ethics. A senior manager involved in an affair, who also coached his mistress on how to defraud her husband. How do you think the board of directors would react to that? I smiled. I wasn't going to just send the evidence to his company's HR department. That was too simple, too direct. I needed a more elegant solution. I opened my laptop and created a new, anonymous email address. Then I composed a letter of concern written in a very professional and dispassionate tone. I didn't embellish or exaggerate. I simply stated the facts and attached a few key pieces of evidence. The screenshot of them discussing the transfer of my assets, and of course, the video that would make him radioactive to any employer. But I didn't send this email to his bosses. I sent it to a handful of his company's most important clients. I also sent it to their top 3 market competitors. At the bottom of the email, I added a helpful little note. The personal conduct of your director of sales, Mr. Mark Thorne, has raised serious questions about his professional ethics and judgment. As a potential business partner, we are now forced to reevaluate the risks of any future collaboration with your firm. That email was a precision-guided missile. It wouldn't explode immediately, but its fallout would be catastrophic. For a public company, reputation is everything. When their biggest clients and fiercest competitors get wind of a scandal this ugly involving a key executive, what do you think the shareholders will do? To save themselves, they would amputate the limb. Mark Thorne would be gone before the market opened next. By the time I was finished, the first light of dawn was breaking. I hadn't slept, but I felt wired, buzzing with a cold, focused energy. I stood at the window, watching the sky turn from gray to pink, and felt a fraction of the immense weight on my chest begin to lift. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Ethan, you son of a bitch. What the hell do you think you're doing?" Chloe's voice was a hysterical shriek on the other end. She sounded raw and full of venom. "My dad is still in the ICU. Are you happy now? If he dies, it's on you. You'll have killed him." I held the phone away from my ear until she was done screaming, then spoke calmly into the receiver. "If he dies, it's because his own shameless daughter broke his heart. That has nothing to do with me." "You." She was so choked with rage, she couldn't speak. "Ethan, I'm begging you. Please, just delete the things you posted in the group chat. Please? We were married. How can you do this to me?" She started to sob, her voice taking on a pathetic, pleading quality. The old Ethan would have folded instantly. The new me just felt sick. "We were married?" I let out a short, harsh laugh. "Did you think about that when you were in bed with Mark Thorne? Did you think about that when you were plotting to steal my money? Stop it, Chloe. The victim act won't work anymore. What do you want from me to make this stop?" she cried, her voice laced with desperation. "Stop," I said, enunciating every word. "The moment you betrayed me, the thought of stopping never even crossed my mind. This is just the beginning, Chloe. Enjoy the show. You've earned it." I hung up. A few minutes later, Wallace called. "Ethan, the petition has been filed with the court. Also, I just received a call from her attorney. They want to discuss an out-of-court settlement." "A settlement?" I scoffed. "Were their terms? Ms. Davis has offered to waive any claim to all assets. In return, she's asking that you withdraw the petition and publicly state that the events at the party were all a misunderstanding." I had a laugh at the sheer audacity. Even now, drowning in the mess she'd made, her family's precious reputation was all that mattered. "You tell them," I said, my voice dropping to a frigid calm, "that there is a 0% chance of that happening. I'm not just divorcing her. I'm filing a separate civil suit for conspiracy to commit fraud. I want her to face consequences. Real, legal consequences." Wallace was quiet for a moment. "I understand, Ethan. I'll proceed as you've instructed." I knew this meant all-out war with the entire Davis family. No truce, no surrender. So be it. They were the ones who had pushed me to the edge. They shouldn't be surprised when I decided to push back. Later that afternoon, I got a call I wasn't expecting. It was Mark Thorne. His voice was a cocktail of panic and fury. "Miller? You did this, didn't you?" "Mark," I said, feigning ignorance. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Don't play dumb with me, you bastard. The emails. Did you send them? He roared. Oh, that, I said, drawing out the word. News travels fast, doesn't it, Mark? How's that VP promotion looking now? You backstabbing coward. You've ruined me. The feeling's mutual, I said flatly. You ruined my marriage. I ruined your career. Seems fair to me. You just wait, Miller. This isn't over. I'll get you for this. He threatened. I'll be waiting, I said. But if I were you, I'd be more worried about how you're going to explain this to your wife. Oh, right. I forgot to mention. I sent her a copy of The Gift as well. A special, extended edition just for her. I heard the distinct sound of something shattering on the other end of the line, followed by a woman's scream and Mark's enraged bellowing. I smiled and ended the call. When you pull out weeds, you have to get the roots. I was going to make sure those two not only lost everything they had, but that they turned on each other, tearing each other apart in the process. Now that was a gift. Chapter 4. The Collapse. The days that followed were unervingly quiet. I turned off my phone, cutting myself off from the world, and retreated into the cavernous silence of my empty house. I needed time to process the explosion I had detonated and to tend to the shrapnel wounds in my own soul. I thought my revenge would bring me a sense of victory, of catharsis. It didn't. In the dead of night, memories of Chloe would ambush me. Her laugh, the way she'd playfully pout, the feeling of her curled up against me. The good times, the life I thought we had, now felt like poison-tipped blades twisting in my heart. I kept telling myself she wasn't real. She was a fraud, an actress. Every smile, every tender moment was just part of the long con. But a heart isn't a switch you can just flip off. You can't just unlove someone you've spent years building a life with. I drank myself into a stupor, hoping the whiskey could numb the pain and blur the memories. All it gave me was a splitting headache and a deeper sense of emptiness the next morning. I let myself wallow for 2 days. Then Wallace called again. He told me the court had accepted the divorce petition and, based on the evidence, had granted an immediate injunction, freezing all assets currently in Chloe's name. The news was like a shot of adrenaline. I couldn't afford to fall apart. This war wasn't over, and I had to be strong enough to see it through to the end. I turned my phone back on. It was immediately flooded with a tidal wave of notifications. Angry voicemails from Davis relatives. Texts from concerned friends. Harassing messages from unknown numbers. I ignored them all. I opened a news app and searched for Mark Thorne's company. The top result was a press release. The language was cold and corporate. Due to personal reasons, Director of Sales Mark Thorne has tendered his resignation, effective immediately. The company sincerely regrets any negative impact his personal conduct may have had on our corporate reputation. It was accompanied by a sternly worded statement affirming their zero-tolerance policy for ethical violations among their employees. I had a smile. It was faster and more brutal than I could have hoped. To protect their stock price, the corporation had excised the tumor without a moment's hesitation. Mark Thorne was officially toxic waste. With a scandal like this attached to his name, his career in this industry was over. No reputable company would touch him. His ambition, his future, gone. Out of curiosity, I looked him up on Facebook and quickly found his wife's profile. Her latest post, from 3 days ago, was a picture of a signed divorce agreement. The caption read, 10 years of my life wasted on a dog, cutting my losses and moving on. To all the liars and cheats, you get what you deserve. The comments were a flood of sympathy for her and vitriol for him. It seemed my special delivery had been highly effective. Mark Thorne was now facing a total systems failure, career and family, both in ashes. I closed the browser, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. One down, one to go. The court date arrived quickly. I saw Chloe for the first time in weeks at the courthouse entrance. She was almost unrecognizable. The polished, radiant woman was gone, replaced by a haggard stranger with frantic, hate-filled eyes. She was dressed in black, her hair was a mess, and dark circles bruised the skin under her swollen, red-rimmed eyes. She stared at me with a look so intense it felt like she was trying to set me on fire with her mind. Her mother, Sharon, stood beside her. Seeing me, she lost what little composure she had left and charged at me, a finger pointed at my face. Ethan Miller, you're a monster. A soulless bastard. Robert is still in the hospital because of you. You ruined my daughter. The Davis family will make you pay for this." Before I could respond, a bailiff stepped between us. "Ma'am, you need to be quiet. This is a courthouse." Sharon was pulled aside, still spitting curses. Chloe didn't say a word. She just kept staring, her eyes burning with a venomous hatred. I walked past her without a glance, my expression unreadable. In the courtroom, things proceeded exactly as Wallace had predicted. He presented the evidence, piece by damning piece. The text messages, the hotel security photos, the financial records, and finally the video. With each new exhibit, the color drained further from Chloe's face. Her lawyer offered only a token defense. Against the mountain of irrefutable proof, any argument was futile. Chloe sat at the defendant's table, trembling uncontrollably. The judge asked if she contested the validity of the evidence. She lifted her head and looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, cornered animal rage. Suddenly, she snapped, screaming across the courtroom at me. "Ethan, I hate you. I was a fool to ever get involved with a social climbing snake like you. You're a fraud, a goddamn hypocrite. You've destroyed my life." "Order." The judge slammed his gavel. "The defendant will control herself. One more outburst like that, and I'll have you removed for contempt." A bailiff put a hand on Chloe's shoulder, and she slumped back in her seat, her face in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. Watching her, I felt nothing, not a flicker of pity. She made her choices. These were the consequences. The verdict was a foregone conclusion. The judge granted the dissolution of our marriage, effective immediately. He ruled that due to Chloe's gross misconduct and fraudulent actions during the marriage, she would forfeit any and all claims to marital assets. She was left with nothing. Furthermore, the court upheld my civil claim, ordering Chloe to repay the full value of the company shares and funds she had illegally transferred into her personal accounts, a sum totaling over $2 million. When she heard the final judgment, Chloe seemed to collapse in on herself, her face a mask of utter devastation. $2 million. To the woman who now had nothing, it might as well have been $1 billion. She was ruined, completely and utterly. Walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight felt brighter, cleaner. I took a long, deep breath. The storm clouds that had been hanging over me for months had finally parted. Sharon tried to accost me again, but Chloe's lawyer held her back. As I passed them, Chloe, supported by her mother, stopped. She looked up at me, her voice a hoarse whisper. "You won, Ethan. Are you happy now?" I met her gaze, my voice even and calm. "This was never about winning or losing, Chloe. This was about consequences. You were simply paying the price for your own actions." Then I turned and walked away, not looking back. I could hear her anguished cries behind me, but I didn't stop. We were finished. It was finally, truly over. On the drive home, Wallace called. "Congratulations, Ethan." "Thanks for everything, Wallace. You were brilliant." "Just doing my job," he said. He paused. "One more thing. Her lawyer just approached me. He said there's no way she can pay that judgment." A cold smile touched my lips. "That's her problem. If she doesn't pay, we pursue every legal avenue. Garnish whatever wages she can earn. File for a lien. Get her put on every credit blacklist that exists. I don't care how long it takes. I want every last cent. I was going to make sure that debt hung around her neck like a millstone for the rest of her life. I wanted her to live every single day with the fear of it. I wanted her to be forever haunted by the price of her greed and betrayal." "Understand," Wallace said. The war, for all intents and purposes, was over. Chloe had lost her husband, her reputation, and her wealth, and was now saddled with a crippling, lifelong debt. Mark Thorne had lost his career, his family, and his good name. They had paid for their sins in the currency they valued most. And me? I had won, but I had also lost the woman I once loved and the life I thought I had. I didn't know whether to celebrate or grieve. I only knew that from this day forward, I had to learn how to build a new life. A life without Chloe. Chapter 5. The dust settles. Life, eventually, returns to a state of quiet normalcy. The first few weeks after the divorce were strange. The big house was too quiet, its silence a constant reminder of my solitude. I purged the space of her memory. I donated her things, bought new furniture, changed the decor, anything to erase the ghost of the life we'd shared. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into my company, leading my team through a series of demanding but successful projects. The long hours kept my mind occupied. Slowly, I grew accustomed to being alone, eating dinner by myself, going to the movies alone, spending a quiet Saturday afternoon on the patio with a cup of coffee and a good book. It was lonely at times, but it was also peaceful. For the first time in a long time, my life felt genuinely my own. I still heard bits and pieces of news about the Davis family through the grapevine. Robert, Chloe's father, had survived the stroke, but had left him permanently disabled. He was paralyzed on one side and confined to a wheelchair, his speech slurred and difficult to understand. The man who had valued his public image above all else was now a shell of his former self, too ashamed to even look visitors in the eye. Sharon had aged a decade overnight. She was now the full-time caregiver for her invalid husband, a bitter, exhausted woman who no longer had the energy for her former arrogance. And Chloe was the final weight that broke the family's back. With no assets and a $2 million judgment against her, she was destitute. The court seized a few $1,000s she had left in her bank account. With nowhere else to go, she was forced to move back in with her parents. But there was no sympathy for her there. Her parents' savings were being drained by Robert's medical bills, and her brother and sister-in-law treated her with open contempt for the shame she had brought upon the family. By all accounts, she was living like an indentured servant in her own childhood home, caring for her disabled father while enduring the constant verbal abuse of her family. Her so-called best friends had all vanished the moment the scandal broke. She tried to find a job, but in a city our size, her story was common knowledge. No respectable company would hire her. She even tried to contact Mark Thorne, but his situation was even more dire. His ex-wife, a woman from a wealthy and influential family, had not only taken him to the cleaners in the divorce, but had also systematically blacklisted him from the industry. He was now working odd jobs just to make rent. When Chloe found him and begged him for help with her debt, he reportedly slapped her across the face, called her a curse that had ruined his life, and threw her out on the street. The two former lovers now hated each other more than anyone else in the world. Hearing all this, I felt a distant, detached sense of finality. They had sown the wind, and now they were reaping the whirlwind. It was a tragedy of their own making. About 6 months later, I was walking home from my office when I saw a familiar, yet strangely unfamiliar, figure lingering near the entrance to my community. It was Chloe. She wore a faded, worn-out coat. Her hair was dull and unwashed, and her face was bare of any makeup, revealing deep, dark circles and the harsh lines of stress and exhaustion. She looked a decade older. When she saw me, a flicker of panic crossed her face, but she took a deep breath and walked toward me. "Ethan," she said, her voice raspy. I stopped waiting. She bit her lip, struggling to find the words. It took a long moment before she could look me in the eye, her own eyes welling with tears. "Ethan, I was wrong. I know that now. I was so wrong," she sobbed. "Please, can you give me another chance? We could get married again. I swear, I'll be a good wife. I'll do anything. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." She started to sink to her knees. I instinctively took a step back. I looked at this weeping, broken woman before me, and the only thing I felt was a profound sense of emptiness. "Chloe," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "There's no going back." "Why not?" she pleaded. "You still love me, don't you? Otherwise, why haven't you started seeing anyone else?" I shook my head, a sad smile touching my lips. "I haven't forgotten you, it's true. But what's left isn't love. It's a scar. The damage you did is too deep. I will never, ever be able to trust you again. And whether or not I see other people," I added, "is my business, not yours." My words were the final blow. They extinguished the last desperate flicker of hope in her eyes. She collapsed onto the pavement in a heap, wailing uncontrollably. I didn't look back again. I walked through the gates and didn't stop. In my rearview mirror, I could see her, a crumpled figure on the sidewalk, crying like a lost child. And in my heart, I finally felt a sense of release. In that moment, I was truly free. Another year passed. My business thrived. We expanded, doubling in size. I sold my house and moved to a new city, eager for a fresh start. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Chloe's family had eventually kicked her out. To pay her debts, she had started working in less than reputable places. After that, the trail went cold. No one knew what happened to her. And me? At a friend's party, I met someone. She wasn't flashy or glamorous like Chloe. She was just a kind, genuine person. When she looked at me, her eyes were filled not with calculation, but with simple, honest affection. We started dating. We went out to dinner, saw movies, and started talking about the future. Being with her felt easy, comfortable, and warm. I finally understood that real happiness isn't about wealth or status or keeping up appearances. It's about finding that one person who makes you feel safe, the person whose shoulder you can lean on when you're tired, the person who allows you to be nothing more or less than yourself. On a bright, sunny afternoon, I asked her to marry me. She said yes, her face wet with happy tears. As I looked at her at the pure joy in her smile, I knew my life had truly turned a new page. As for the past and the people in it, I let them go. Let them be carried away like dust on the wind. The end.